Hey, this is Z with Small Scale Development, where we're going to take you step by step by step through the development process, through our projects, so you can learn how to do development for yourself. So today I'm talking about a project that I mentioned last time. A client wanted to build a duplex in a residential zone, a small duplex, 2 bedrooms per unit, and so about 1,000 square feet per side, 2,000 square feet in total. So we looked at the zoning, what you could build, what the setbacks were, and I sent over some questions to the planning department to see their thoughts before we moved any further. See about getting a conditional use permit versus rezoning, and so I got feedback from them, and I wanted to share that with you so you could kind of see what we're looking at. That was nice. They gave me some things to think about that I hadn't thought about before. But so with regard to getting a conditional use permit, they said, let's see, basically what I said before. From a compatibility standpoint, they believe that the duplex makes sense at the location. However, one problem is that the zoning, the NC zoning, which is sort of residential, has a maximum of 10 units per acre. And so given the size, which is zero point 0.1 acres, you couldn't get 2 units on there. So the funny thing is you can do a 4-bedroom house, but you can't do two 2-bedroom units. So it's kind of a funny quirk of density that we across the country we make requirements on number of units, but it has nothing to do with bedroom size. So it turns out that zoning is not possible to do a quote unquote duplex. However, so one way around this would be to get a board of adjustment saying, hey, this is only 2 units, this is only 4 bedrooms. We could do the same thing with a 4-bedroom house. However, the board of adjustment has a lot stricter requirements. They have to show a hardship. You have to prove why. It's just more of a legal hurdle rather than kind of an opinion of whether it makes sense or not. And so that's unlikely that there would be a hardship, because you could still build a single family house or something else. So I've gone through that once before, was not approved. Most of my conditional use permits have been approved before, or variances, but that one was not, because I can tell you about it later, but it just wasn't clearly a hardship. I had other options. So the other option that I mentioned was a rezoning option. We could rezone it to RIU, and this would take longer because it would have to go through the city council, and that would allow more density. There's no density cap in the RIU. The idea is for that zoning to have small multifamily, so you could have up to 4-unit building. So not huge apartments, but just sort of more neighborhood scale, small apartments. So that is possible. I think that probably the city could approve that, or the city council would probably approve it. No guarantees. However, one problem that they mentioned, which I hadn't thought about also, was access management. So here, duplexes require a 50-foot separation from adjacent driveways. And so I'm not sure, I haven't looked at that closely, but there's driveways on both sides, and so that 50-foot separation might cause an issue. And that brings us to, so we probably could get a variance from the engineering department. I don't think that would probably be a problem, because you need a driveway, whether it's a single family, you need a driveway too. So there's not any sort of additional requirement, but it's just something that to consider. And that brings me to an important point. So I'm going to come back here to zoning. So one thing I hadn't mentioned last time was, hopefully, let's see where we are. Well, I'm not going to waste your time here, but in the neighborhood conservation, okay, neighborhood conservation. So I showed you can put single family dwellings, you can have two family with conditional use, but then down here it says 10 units per acre. So I missed thinking about that. A lot of my projects have not had density issues before, so wasn't on the top of my mind. Coming back to some of the other issues, so you have, when you're looking at development, you have the zoning, which I showed you over here, what you're allowed to do, and so those are usually fairly clear, at least from my end. I feel like I have a pretty good handle on what you're allowed to do, as long as I'm not forgetting to pay attention to something. But then really a lot of times the devil is in the details, in the sense that this is the Muni code. So I think a lot of cities use this library.municode.com, and you can go to different cities, but you should have it online, and it talks about all of the codes that the city has. So Unified Development Code here, talks about what happens if you want a variance, how you deal with that, zoning districts, zoning regulations, different use units and conditions. So let's see, use units, what do we have here? So small scale production, again, we talked about duplex, an ADU, 3 or 4 family, multifamily, what are all allowed, and they're all different use units. So if you wanted to have like a live work, for example, what could you actually do in that live work? Or you want to have an office space in a residential zone, what type of office could you have? What is allowed there? How many hours, different things like that. So that's use units and use conditions. So home occupation, for example, what are you allowed to do there? And I'm not going to go into detail here, but here one of you might be curious about bed and breakfast facilities. So short-term rental, what all is included? So that's use units and use conditions. The other thing that comes in to development that is tricky is there's all these other codes. So there's a whole chapter for development. There's other zoning regulations, specialized development regulations. There's flood prevention, stormwater management, streets and sidewalks, parking and loading. So again, you think you kind of know what you're doing when you go through the zoning chapter, but then it comes to streets and sidewalks, and let's see if I don't know where that section is offhand, and it's not necessarily relevant to find it exactly for you because you may not be looking here. But I just want you to consider that there's a whole lot of other things to consider. So when you think you have a plan, you then have to go further and look into the details, and a lot of times it's just either past experience, or your architect, designer, engineer. Hopefully they should have experience with a lot of these details and kind of know just back of hand. But nevertheless, I always find little details that I didn't know were there. I call them little Easter eggs or gems that are usually preventing me from doing what I want to do. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks.